to bring in my guests. I am joined with the man himself, Kevork Almassian. Let me know if I get that right. Is that correct?
You pronounce it perfectly. And
I'm
of
bad
course,
at names.
you're
I'm
you're
horrible
you're
at
the
names.
first podcaster or who pronounced my name exactly the way it is.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm so bad at names, right? So I that's always ask first. Kevork Almassian, he's a
Yes,
geopolitical analyst and host of Syriana Analysis. It is a fantastic show. Kevork,
thank you.
just to toot your own horn for a bit, or toot your horn for a bit. He was one of the main and only people pointing out something is weird with Syria and something needs to be done. Otherwise, this government is going to be toppled. It seems like something was going on. I think 3 months, 4 months later, it happened exactly as you kept saying it was going to happen. Um, Welcome to the show, man. You doing okay today?
Thank you so much, brother, for having me and for the compliment. Actually, it's not really difficult to foresee what could come next in West Asia or the Middle East, especially if you follow the patterns of the policy making in Washington and Tel Aviv. And in this case, when I saw the series of assassinations in Lebanon, especially Nasrallah, I came to the conclusion that the Americans and the Israelis are very serious and determined to break what used to be called the axis of resistance. And I believed that the strategic depth of the axis of resistance was represented in Syria. So they needed to cut the geographical, let's say, connectivity between Iran, Syria, Lebanon, and Palestine. And therefore, it was only logical for them to restart the regime change operation in Syria. And who is the strongest force in Syria is the offshoot of Al-Qaeda, led by
Mhm.
Abu Muhammad al-Jolani, who is now the self-selected president of Syria, who yesterday reportedly opened the airspaces of Syria to the Israeli fighter jets. And not only that, the Israeli fighter jets are refueling their fighter jets over the skies of Syria.
Yep.
And two, he also sent signals to Israel that if he is supplied with air defenses, then he will happily join um, the so-called moderate Arab camp in gunning down and shooting down the Iranian drones or any Iranian ballistic missiles flying over the skies in the region, basically. So this guy has been a CIA asset for a long time, and this is not a secret. I mean, it is confessed by several officials, including Jake Sullivan, when he said in 2012, famously to Hillary Clinton in one of his emails to her that Al-Qaeda is on our side in Syria. The Defense Intelligence Agency, DIA, of the US Army, they clearly told Obama that the so-called rebels in Syria are mostly Al-Qaeda affiliated. And we have many statements coming from James Jeffrey, who was the former US envoy, special envoy to Syria, saying Jolani is an asset to our strategy. And now the current special envoy of the US, who is also the ambassador of the US in Ankara, he clearly says that we have to protect Jolani. Like we have to find, let's say, I'm trying to remember the exact words. He said security system around Jolani to protect him from a possible assassination because they fear that their man could be assassinated. And this is, of course, for the sake of Israel. Now, when we put this Syrian war into this proper context, we also understand what is happening now in Iran. And
Yes.
I have warned many times, and I'm not here to say, I told you so, because I don't like doing that. But
Do
it's quite,
it.
yeah,
Do it.
it's quite clear that once they were done with Syria, they will go after Iran.
Yes.
And Iran made the strategic error, in my opinion, for not coming in defense of Syria when the regime change war restarted in November 2024. Some may argue and say they didn't have the capability or they didn't have the capacity, or some people say they have different calculations. And I understand the domestic calculations of Iran, but on the broader scheme of affairs in the Middle East, if you abandon Syria, which represents your strategic depth in the axis of resistance, then you are basically allowing Israel to make a move on the chessboard and come closer to Iran. And that is, of course, now using the Syrian airspace to bomb Iran, right? And
Yep.
not only that, they're also cutting the supply chains for other non-state actors such as Hezbollah, Hamas, Jihad, who received weapons from Syria or through Syria, right? So this was, in my opinion, a big strategic error from the Iranian side, and now the war has moved into their territory. So this is something important. If you don't fight the empire in a buffer zone, which is Syria, Lebanon, Palestine, for example, then the war moves into your territories, and this is what is happening at the current moment.
Yeah, I kept saying the wolf was at the gates. That, this idea that appeasement was going to somehow stop Israel was nonsense. They took every act of appeasement and pragmatism as weakness.
Yeah.
And, acting like America, that blew my mind. They were acting as if America was an honest actor, which I don't quite get, especially for a government like Iran, where they murdered Soleimani as he was on a peace mission, no less, where they went back on every deal that they ever came up with, whether it was the Palestinians and they turned a blind eye to let those Palestinians get murdered, or even pulling out of nuclear treaties. Hell, the tariff war, Donald Trump had no concern about sticking with deals. And it looked like it was obvious that he was not trying to get a deal. He was trying to create a pretext for war. Weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. Oh my God, weapons of mass destruction in Iran, despite the fact that our own intelligence said that wasn't the case.
What the Americans do, basically, my friend, is they use the negotiations as a smokescreen to send the false signal to the enemy, and American enemy in this case, Iran, telling them that we're interested in talks. We're not interested in wars. But at the same time, they prepare for war under the table. And they have done this with Russia, Minsk Agreement 1 and Minsk Agreement 2. So what they do, basically, they freeze the conflict in order to arm the proxy, in this case, Ukraine, against Russia. And similarly, what happened in Iran, they negotiate with Iran, they talk to Iran, they send positive signals. For example, Witkoff several times says the talks are moving crazy good, like it's fine, everything is okay. But those are all smoke screens, because at the end, before reaching an agreement, the Americans come with an impossible demand, and that is to zero enrichment. But zero enrichment means that Iran will cut off electricity, for example, for millions of people, and also factories who are in dire need for this nuclear energy to light up their homes and to move on with their businesses, right? And therefore, what the Americans have done, we talk with you, but then we ask for an impossible demand. You will reject it. We know you will reject it. And then we say, the ultimatum is gone. We gave you 60 days, and now Israel is going to bomb you. But the truth of the matter is, according to many reports, intelligence reports, and citing officials in the US, they all say that this attack against Iran was planned at least 8 months ago.
Yeah.
Which means the talk started 6 months ago. So the preparation for war against Iran started 2 months before the negotiations. So accordingly, all these talks, 6-month talks, were nothing but smokescreen to give Iran this false impression that there is no war. And when we see the assassinations in Iran and Israel, Israeli attacks were devastating against Iran. Assassinations that happened, those are senior commanders. We're not talking about some ordinary people, which means Iran didn't anticipate this, because it is impossible for me to believe that if Iran at least anticipated such attacks, they wouldn't have asked their senior commanders to sleep at their apartments, at home, normal homes. It's like they killed the people of entire building to kill one commander. Of course, Israelis do not care about that at all. But what I'm saying is, Iran was shocked, surprised by this attack. It's crazy for me sometimes to see.
Why do you think they were shocked by it? Because I was talking to Morandi, and my thing to him was kind of like I would bring people on and they would take a rational point of view. And I would say, well, dude, ideologues are not rational. They see the world. I mean, these are racist, hateful people. They're not looking at the world as it is. They're looking at it through their lens. And from their point of view, they've had impunity to murder hundreds of thousands of people for 2 years. They've gone into one country after the next. All of this stuff was on camera. So why were you shocked by this? And he said he was shocked at the severity or the savagery at which they went after leadership. My thing was like, why? Why? They have had no issue murdering people for years. Why are you, let me ask it as a question. Why do you think they accepted somebody like Trump as being an honest actor? That's the part that blows my mind. Donald Trump is one of the most dishonest people on the planet. He is amoral to truth. Like, he is a habitual liar. And as a rule, habitual liars lie. Why did they think, after looking at Syria, Afghanistan, Iraq, hell, the Sudan is a basket case, Libya, that now they're dealing with a country that is supposed to be honest? I don't understand why they accepted Donald Trump as being an honest actor in this.
That's why I blame Iran. Not I blame them for getting attacked, but I blame them for this miscalculation. And that's why, like in the past few weeks before this attack started, I was telling my audience on my YouTube channel, guys, Israel will attack Iran. And Iranians are doing a huge mistake. And then some Iranians, of course, I understand their sentiments. They come and tell me in the comments, do you know better than our leadership? What are you saying? This is a Zionist fear-mongering. And I'm like, I'm telling you from the patterns of the policy making in Israel, they will come after Iran. And they're very serious. They're very determined. Don't underestimate Israel and the United States. This is the problem in the region, is this false, some people have big mouths in the region and they say, if we're attacked, we will wipe out Israel from the map and all this stuff, populistic talk. And some people, they are caught in this hype and they think that if they're attacked, then they will wipe out Israel completely, right? And therefore they say we have deterrence. But that's inaccurate, because if Israel has nukes and you don't have a nukes, then already Israel has an advantage above you. That's simple, right? So you can, of course, strike Israel, but you're a country of tens of millions of people, and your government is rational enough and not suicidal to go into an open war against Israel and then get nuked, and millions of people from the Iranian people will perish, right? So, of course, the Iranians will not go to that direction. So what is the solution here? It is deterrence, deterrence, deterrence. But deterrence doesn't start in Iran. Deterrence starts from advanced front lines against Israel, which means in southern Lebanon, in Palestine, and in Syria. And when you lose these front lines to Israel, then you lost deterrence. But Iran had the opportunity to reestablish deterrence when Israel started hitting Lebanon very harshly and started killing its leadership. But Iran was very hesitant to join this. And I will give you one example, and this is an information and not an analysis, right? After October 7, this was, I believe, in mid-June, July 2024, Iranian delegation came to Damascus. Back then, Assad was still in power. And they asked him about the possibility of opening a front line from the Golan, from the southern Syria against the Golan Heights, which is a Syrian territory. And the first question Syrians asked, Assad asked the delegation, are you guys going to join this war, or we're going to fight this by ourselves? Because once we start a war against Israel, Israel will decimate our cities. And we're already, we're going out of a 14 years of devastating war. And the Iranians do not want to join the war. And the Syrians said, no, then we're not going to open a new front line after 14 years of already an internal war again against Israel, if you don't want to join it. And the Iranians were upset and then started publishing articles, because they leak such security information to the press. And the talking heads started to say, Assad betrayed the axis of resistance for not opening a front line. But excuse me, if you want to open a front line, you need to join it if it goes out of hands. But if I don't receive a guarantee that Iran will join the war, and me as Syria, without any economic resources, under harsh sanctions, my military is overstretched in the entire country, then this is suicidal for me as well, right? And therefore...
just to be clear, they did that? They asked them to fight Israel without any assistance from Iran.
Assistance is, they will send you weapons, they will send you advisors and tell you what to do, but they will not join the war directly. If things go out of hand, you need the Iranian backing. Just like the Americans are supporting Israel directly, you need a stronger power on your back. Syria's economy is in tatters. They don't have enough fuel to operate the tanks. So if there is not going to be a secured fuel line between Iran and Syria to operate the machinery and the tanks, then how can you fight a war, right?
Exactly, right.
So this is what happened. And I will go one step further, and this is something that I don't mention often. Iran put enormous pressure on Syria for Assad to shake hands with Erdogan, for example. And everybody knows that Erdogan is a snake, and he's playing a double game in the region. And the main actor who reactivated this regime change war in Syria and ousted Assad is first Erdogan's Turkey and then Israel. And the purpose of it was to break down the axis of resistance against Israel, and Turkey would expand from Aleppo to Damascus, and the Israelis would take over southern Syria, which they already did, and open up to other regions in Syria, such as the Kurdish areas in the east, or with the Druze community in the south as well. And they have done this. So when Assad said, no, I don't want to reconcile with Erdogan, unless he vows or he gives his word that he will withdraw from Syria, because Turkish occupation forces, again, are on Syrian territories. And what Iran did, basically, they cut fuel to Syria for 3 months, and the country became completely dysfunctional during this time for 3 months, so that they forced Assad to shake hands with Erdogan. So crazy miscalculations happened in the past at least 2 years in the region, which led to this situation now in Iran.
That is outrageous. That is outrageous.
Yeah.
Like, what did Iran think they were dealing with? I mean, like, they effectively undercut their ally in the region, wouldn't be interested in joining the conflict, and then left them in the lurch by cutting oil, something that they effectively needed to just function.
Yeah.
That is amazing. Like, Kevork, that's amazing. Like, my mind is blown.
Because Iran lives. When I criticize Iranian, I criticize decisions, right? Those are human beings. They hit or miss, just like any other politician. So I'm not like here attacking. I'm not attacking Iran as a nation. I'm saying Iran is playing with the rules of a game, and these rules are made by the imperialists to subjugate the rest of the world. Iran lives in an illusion to thinking that Erdogan is somehow going to shift from the west to the east or towards the BRICS. And that's a fallacy, because once you understand what the Muslim Brotherhood group is, like, what is the Muslim Brotherhood? The Muslim Brotherhood is a group founded in Egypt in 1920s, when the Brits used to occupy Egypt. And they supported the rise and the spawn of this group in Egypt because they wanted to find an internal rift inside Egypt against the nationalists and the socialists, because the nationalists and the socialists were fighting against the British Empire. And the Brits said, okay, we have to find an internal enemy for this resistance, so they fight against each other. And since then, in every major conflict, in every strategic juncture in the region, the Muslim Brotherhood always played the role of the fifth column, breaking the backbone of the resistance against imperialists. And the last one was only in 2024, when the Muslim Brotherhood-led government in Turkey, represented by Erdogan, they colluded with Israel and the United States to oust Assad, to help Israel in this case. It always happens. I will give you one historical example, and this is the last one. In 1973, Syria and Egypt attacked Israel to liberate the territories they lost to Israel in 1967 war. So in 67, Israel occupied large swaths of territories from Egypt and Syria and Palestinian territories. And Hafez al-Assad and back then Anwar al-Sadat, they planned on a surprise attack against Israel to capture and liberate the territories they lost. And they were moving forward really well, and then Anwar al-Sadat stopped. Anyways, Anwar al-Sadat decided after the war that he will pursue peace agreement with Egypt, right? And he struck a peace agreement with Israel in 1978. During this time, Jimmy Carter was trying to persuade Hafez al-Assad to join the peace agreements with Israel. Hafez al-Assad rejected categorically, and they boycotted Egypt. They led a campaign against Egypt, calling them traitors, etc. Now, when Egypt signed this treaty, the Americans came again and said, look, this is your last chance. Sign this peace treaty and everything will be all right. And you will be normalized in the region. We will lift sanctions. We will treat you like a normal nation. You will be on our side. We're the superpower, this and that. And Hafez al-Assad said no. And this is in 78. In 79, 1 year later, the Muslim Brotherhood waged an armed insurgency against the Syrian government back then. And they established an Islamic emirate in 2 cities, Aleppo and in Hama. And they used to send everyday car bombs and killings based on sectarian hatred and ethnic hatred. So they destabilized Syria immensely for 4 years until 82, until Hafez al-Assad crushed the insurgency in Syria. So what I'm saying is Muslim Brotherhood was and still is a fifth column in the Islamic world. And the countries which represent today this power, the Muslim Brotherhood power, are Erdogan's Turkey and Qatar. These 2 countries are the biggest collaborators with Israel and the United States, but on the face, on the mask that they wear in the Islamic world or in the Arab world, that they're somehow on the side of the Palestinians or on the side of the oppressed people. This is all smokescreen and the facade, and they are strategic friends and allies with the empire, basically, including Qatar, which hosts the biggest and largest American airfield in the Middle East, including strategic bombers now on Qatari soil.
So, one, I don't think you're attacking Iran. You're giving political analysis of miscalculations, mistakes, and failures. On Friday, I flipped out myself, and I spent, I think, 20 minutes bashing Iran for what I consider to just be incompetence, just raging incompetence. The wolf is at your door. The monsters are at the gates. What is it of the Israelis? They're more like Nazis than anything else in the way that they've treated the Palestinian population. They've considered them disposable. And you think that they consider you any different in that. They don't. And they now considered it their opportunity. And instead of doing True Promise 3, as they said they were, or continuing with True Promise 2 until they turned their place in the class, they didn't do that. And they lost credibility and they lost any notion of deterrence in that process. Israel considered it to be weak. My point is, I don't think you're bashing them. I think you're just giving political analysis. I have to be honest with you, I am blown away that they did that.
Jamal, if you remember during Operation Promise 2, the Americans told the Iranians, show self-restraint. We're going to reach into a ceasefire agreement in Gaza.
Right.
And we promise you a ceasefire agreement if you act in a restrained manner. And the Iranians acted in a restrained manner and there was no ceasefire agreement. So sorry to say, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me.
You know, while about that,
3 times, 4 times, 5 times,
Possession was like, oh, the Americans lied to me. It's like, dude. And I remember saying, you should not be in that job.
Yeah.
Like, if you were taken in like that, you should not be in that job. Be more cynical, right?
Yeah.
And as you said, if you keep fooling me, I'm just amazed that Iran did that to Syria. I really am. I mean, as you point out, that was their bulwark. That was their front line in many respects. And we watch Hezbollah get taken apart, Hamas get taken apart, and Syria get utterly destroyed. And you have to think to yourself, okay, if Syria was still there, would Israel be able to refuel their jets over top of Syria? No, not really. Especially if you have both of these countries involved in an actual conflict. Wow, that is mind-blowing to me that they did that.
Jamal, I will go one step further and say, I do believe, I don't have evidence, proof of it, but from the sequences of events, I believe in the theory that the former president of Iran, Raisi, was killed. And not
a lot of people do.
I think this was a moment for Iran to decide whether they're going to declare it as an assassination or as a helicopter crash, and they went with the lie that, this is my opinion, that it was a helicopter crash and not an assassination, because if it's an assassination, you're talking about the president of the country and the foreign minister and other generals with them. That means the reaction of Iran has to be
War.
very, very harsh, very
Yeah.
harsh. So they sold this theory that it's a helicopter crash. I don't believe that. Raisi was coming from Azerbaijan. Azerbaijan is an advanced satellite country for Israel.
Yes.
Azerbaijan is an arena for the Mossad and the secret services of Israel to plan and execute psyops and operations inside Iran. So everybody knows the role of Azerbaijan in this case. And additionally, Israel started building what is called smart villages on the borders with Iran, inside Azerbaijan. So those are all indications, in my opinion, that there was something probably technologically happened, like jamming or cyber attack against the helicopter, which led into the fall of the president and the foreign minister. Now, if Dr. Ibrahim Raisi and Amir Abdullahian were still in power, I rule out that Iran would have abandoned Syria. I don't
Yeah.
believe for a moment that the what is called the hardliners in Iran would have abandoned Syria. They have invested immensely with blood and money in Syria to keep it intact against the empire. And once the helicopter crash happened, the new administration in Iran, what is called the moderate administration, they have shown no interest in coming and helping Syria militarily when, the shit hit the fan, you know?
But isn't
Therefore,
that a choice for the Ayatollah, though? But that's not.
no, no.
Okay.
Ayatollah has certain level of influence, of course, in the country, but there is this exaggeration in, of course, in the mainstream press that everything is in the hand of the Ayatollah Khamenei. There are
I see.
practical decisions inside the military because the Iranian army is not only the IRGC. You have many other units in the, and those are the biggest part of the army, basically. What happened is when the government in Iran decided not to help Syria, right? The IRGC, which Ayatollah Khamenei has an influence over and a say in it, they wanted to help Syria, and they sent a squadron of fighter jets to Syria to supply Syria with necessary military means to resist this insurgency again, which was reactivated last year. But then the Israeli fighter jets intervened, and they flew all the way to the borders with Iraq, and they blocked the Iranian fighter jets from coming to Syria. And this was stated and confessed by Netanyahu himself. He said, like, we saw the fighter jets are coming to Syria and we blocked them. And the Biden administration, they have bombed the border crossings between Syria and Iraq in order to
Right.
block the what is called the Hashd Shabi, the PMU, the Popular Mobilization Units from Iraq to come to Syria. So the US and Israel have played a direct military role in ousting Assad from power and allowing Jolani to move. Jolani basically moved on a motorcycle 500 kilometers from Idlib to Aleppo, from Aleppo to Damascus without resistance. He didn't liberate anything. Like everything was already finished when he came to Damascus. And he's not the first one who arrived to Damascus. There were other units who arrived to Damascus first before him. And then the decision was made by the US and Israel to crown Jolani as the president of Syria. And he selected himself. There were no elections.
No.
There is no constitution. Jolani is not responsible in front of the parliament, is not responsible in front of the cabinet, is not responsible in front of the judiciary. He's basically the king now of Syria. And this is what they wanted. They wanted someone radical like Jolani in Syria who can cause these internal strifes inside the country to divide Syria on sectarian and ethnic lines and be a puppet for them. And Jolani is like a good boy, you know, like you can pet him. You can ask him anything and he would give you. Like Jolani stands naked in front of Israel and the US, and he's begging them for peace agreement. Why would Israel strike a peace agreement with you now if they already reached all their strategic goals in Syria and you don't have anything on the table to give Israel back? Like during negotiations, you give and take. Israel took already everything from you. So why would they even sign a peace agreement with you? But he thinks that he's a geopolitical mastermind, that if he takes out his clothes and be naked, and then everybody will accept it. No, that's not how Israel operates. Even with their so-called allies, they don't respect them if they are not powerful. So
Right.
Jolani is, sorry to say, is not no one in Syria, and he could be ousted like this. He doesn't have an army. He doesn't have an air defenses. He doesn't have a tank. He has nothing. Like, it's a militia, basically. If the balance of power shifts in the region, for an argument's sake, if Iran emerges victorious from this war, Jolani will be ousted. Because Jolani
No, please finish.
Jolani is in power because of the shift in the balance of power which happened in the last 1.5 years from in favor of the US and Israel. And once that balance of power shift again, he will be ousted. So I'm saying theoretically, if Iran manages to to survive and hit Israel very hard, and the balance of power or establish deterrence again, Jolani should be very fearful. So he should really pray day and night for Israel to win this war, because he will be in a really deep shit.
What do you think happens next? We have about 2 minutes. What happens from here on out? My predictions stop at the point where the wolf was at the door and the wolf was going to attack. Now this is a hurricane, and I don't know if other forces are going to come in. Give me your model of what you think happens from here on out.
I think Iran has already fallen into the trap of the Israelis. What Israelis did, they assassinated these commanders, and they were praying day and night that the retaliation would be exactly the same way that the Iranian retaliation was in the past days, because this will give Israel always the escalatory dominance. They will initiate, and the Iranians will come and hit them like under the level of the Israeli attacks against Iran. They will never match Israel or outmatch Israel. So escalatory dominance in the hands of Israel, it's tit for tat, but this gives Israel the opportunity to increase the escalation until the Americans would intervene in this conflict. And this is the goal. And it's not in the interest of Iran for the US to intervene in this case, or the Brits to intervene. So they either have to change their military strategy and establish deterrence now. I'm talking about now. Some people even say it's already too late, or it will lead into this snowball of escalation, and the collective West will intervene against Iran, and no one will intervene in support of Iran directly. Neither Russia nor China, nobody is interested to intervene directly militarily.
Agreed. Kevork, I agree with you. I didn't understand why they were like, hey, we may hit this place. It's like, what are you doing? Just hit it. Don't tell me. Just do it, right?
I'm not calling for war. I also live in Germany. I'm not suicidal. I don't have any let's say interest in waking up with the police and gun on my head. I don't call any violence in the region. I'm just analyzing and saying what is on my mind, because I'm just saying, because Jamal, many people watch this content and they explain it the way they want, and they complain against me here in Germany to the authorities. He's calling for violence against the Jewish people. I'm like, no. Yeah, no.
You're pointing out material reality of a conflict that Israel started, or you can say Israel and the United States started. And
what an anti-Semitic thing to say, that Israel started, my friend. They never start. They are always defending themselves.
Right, the permanent victims, right? Kevork Almassian, man, great spot. Thank you for this. He is a geopolitical analyst, host of Syriana Analysis. You have a fantastic day. You be safe, okay? All right.